iron in the soul.
What's up, YouTube? This is Iron and Soul, back today with another video. Please subscribe to my channel, like this video, leave a comment, share, let me know what you think about my content. Let's get to work. Let's talk about a subject matter that I taught on about a year ago. And I'm going to bring this teaching back because I've received a number of requests through email, as well as direct messages on Instagram for those who want to have notes on this particular subject. So let's talk about this today. Let's talk about the raceless black man. And this is a very important teaching. It's something that has some practical application. And we'll look at two very known black men to teach this, and that is O.J. Simpson and Michael Jordan. We'll look at their lives and we'll look at, what exactly this means to be the raceless black man. So let's talk about this. Before I talk about O.J. and Michael Jordan, let's get into what this is. Raceless black men are normally adversarial to other black men, or at best, silent to our mistreatment. So these are the type of black men who really try to do everything they can to escape their African-American roots in this country. And so they will see you and they will stare versus speak and be brotherly. They will be hostile, and this is something I've observed a lot with the raceless black men. They jump on the side of the majority culture, and they basically posture themselves against you while pretending that you're not the same. And so this is very dangerous. And this is something that a lot of black men do. There are a lot of black men out here are the raceless black men, and they will turn on you, And so this goes back even further than that. We can take a step back to the days of the Willie Lynch letter. And in this letter, it was a teaching to essentially pin blacks against blacks and to use very basic differences to do that, such as age, such as skin complexion, what type of work you did. There was always this comparisons, and that created this division and strife that we see even today in 2022. You even see this amongst some so-called Christians, and many of them are under mind control, to be honest. Just because they believe in the Bible doesn't mean that they're not directly under satanic mind control. Now, there's a lot of infiltration, I guess you could say, to the church. And you think about the church, and this is something I'll talk about probably in depth in another talk. You think about the pastors and prophets, the pastors and our rappers who often have a prophet spirit. You have to understand that a lot of our so-called pastors and prophets are under mind control. And a lot of them are under witchcraft to a degree. And they are essentially teaching what they're taught. They say what they're told to say, and they stay safe. And they stay away from the issues that will really help black men to become strong, to become wealthier, and to do what is necessary to go forward. And so many of them are under the control, let's just say, of intelligent agencies, okay? And with that, there are certain topics they just can't touch on. This is why if you go to the average black church, you guys have seen this, they almost never bring up issues that are directly adversarial to black men. And most of the congregation is predominantly women who are there not just for Jesus, they're there to find a man, and two, to get some type of financial support because they know that there's money in that location, right? And I'll leave that there. So the Christians who say one race, different ethnicities, are often racist towards black men. Let me say it again. So the so-called Christians who often say one race, different ethnicities, are often racist toward black men. There is a big difference in being friendly versus being someone's friend. Friendship is mutual respect, which is something that not a lot of people have for you from majority culture. There's not often mutual respect. There's often this undertone of I'm superior to you, right? This token acceptance, and never really seeing you as they see themselves. And this is something that Malcolm X pointed out very clearly in his autobiography. They never see you as they see themselves. And that creates this undertone of superiority. Get nervous when you get too black. And I got black in parentheses. Meaning when you begin to grow out your dreads and you get a big beard and you become more muscular and you begin to speak up and to give your opinion, to speak up against police brutality. when you begin to speak up against the wealth inequality and institutionalized and systemic racism that just brutalizes your family. Then all of a sudden, you're not their brother anymore. And there's a different tone, a different conversation. And I've seen this firsthand with many of the hypocritical people who go to church every Sunday. Now, that being said, I am still a believer in biblical Christianity. What I am against often is the hypocrisy that we see in many American churches. So I am for, and always will be for, biblical New Testament Christianity. That's my belief system. But what I am against is the misapplication, I guess you could say, of the teachings of the Bible in many churches across this land, where they simply use the word of God to hide, at times, a white supremacist agenda. And in many cases in black churches, a feminist agenda that is adverse in both cases to the black man. And I've seen this firsthand in both environments. Tupac Shakur kind of pointed this out in one of his songs some years ago. He says that they claim that I'm violent just because I refuse to remain silent. These hypocrites are having fits because I'm not buying it. And I think that's just really some profound lyrics from Tupac Shakur. He was really ahead of his time. This was back in the 90s. And I'm gonna read that one again. They claim that I'm violent, right? And why is that? Just because you want to speak up and say, you know what? This is not right. This is not righteous. I know what it means to be righteous. To be righteous, it means to be honest, to be upright, to be truthful. The scripture says that the righteous are as bold as a lion. So righteousness is about love. It's about showing grace and favor. Righteousness is about telling the truth, having a just balance, equality, unity, love, faith, hope, and love. That's what it means to be righteous. But often the hypocrites are having fits because I'm not buying it. So when I begin to wake up, hence woke or conscious, begin to think for myself and understand what you're feeding me as lies and hypocrisy, then all of a sudden you don't hear truth, you hear violence. And that's a shame. You see, the fear of the black man isn't really fear. The fear of the black man isn't really fear. What it is really guilt. Americans are not ignorant about what happened to black men in this country. They are guilty. So when they see you, they're uncomfortable. So when they see you, they say with an uncomfortable smile, is everything okay? Because they know in their own conscience before they even ask you that question that everything is not okay. You ever notice that they come around all nervous? Oh, everything okay? You know it's not okay. Before you even open your mouth, hypocrite, you know it's not okay. You know that there's an injustice. You know that there's an imbalance. You know that there's something here that's not fair and not right before God, and you know it. And so before you even ask me that question, you know the answer to that. You see, systemic racism basically keeps anyone away from us who can help us. Pretty clear that there is no gain really in helping black folks. That's what systemic racism is. It basically keeps anyone from really helping us. And it makes it pretty clear that you really have no gain in helping black folks. And you have more to lose than to gain when you do that. So let's talk about two raceless black men. O.J. Simpson and Michael Jordan. You think about O.J. Simpson. His life shows you can be talented as a black man as long as you are tamed. He was so sophisticated, according to them, articulate, and could be trusted. He is a picture of blacks who protect themselves against white supremacy by ignoring it when they're experiencing and almost always minimizing the suffering of other black people. Let me say it again. He is a picture of a black man who protects himself or themselves against white supremacy by ignoring it when they experience it and minimizing the suffering of other blacks. This is kind of the basis of the raceless black men. They essentially ignore the white supremacy that they themselves experience. They know what it is. They numb themselves. They basically just endure it and act as if it's not there. And they also ignore the pain and suffering of other African Americans. So the damage is done. You think about Jay-Z's song, The Story of O.J., and he talks about O.J. Simpson in the song, which is very powerful, right? And rap is really powerful in that regards. We can really say a lot in 2 or 3 minutes. And in this chorus, Jay-Z points out very clearly the dynamics that you can see in a raceless black man. And for the sake of controversy, I'm going to use the word Negro here as the word as opposed to the word Nigga. Light Negro, dark Negro, real Negro, fake Negro, rich Negro, poor Negro, house Negro, field Negro, still Negro, still Negro. And this is the story of OJ. And then he says in his song, he says it sarcastically, I'm not black, I'm OJ. And he says, okay, right? And so what is Jay-Z saying? He's using rap and poetry and hip hop to really shine a light on this raceless black man. You know, OJ says, I'm not black, but OJ became black very clearly to the whole world once he crossed the line in the eyes of the majority culture. And all of a sudden, he was no longer their token anymore. He was no longer a juice. He was no longer the sophisticated, articulate, raceless black man who ignored the white supremacy he himself endured, as well as the white supremacy and hatred that other blacks endured. He was no longer their token Negro. And he lost that status of the raceless black man. So this is why Jay-Z in his song sarcastically says, I'm not black, I'm OJ. Okay. In other words, he's saying, OJ, you are black. You just black as me? You just black as everybody else in this country that's a black man. You black like Kodak Black. You hear me? You are a black man, brother. I don't care how you try to hide that. I don't care how you try to talk, how you try to carry yourself. I don't care if you shave your face bald and cut your mustache off. You know, some of you jokers cut your doggone lip if they're trying to look like you're not black. Shaving your beard off. Because you refuse to embrace your African roots. And I don't care, you can do all this shaving all you want to. You can go to the barber shop every 4 days if you want to. You can do whatever you want to do. You can read the whole dictionary from cover to cover, like Malcolm X did. And you will still be seen, sir, as an African American or a black man in this country. Bottom line. Let's talk about MJ, Michael Jordan. Unfortunately, Michael Jordan, as great as he is another example of the raceless black man. $200 million a year in gym shoe sales. High schools, everyone had to have the latest Michael Jordans. I remember being in high school, and it's probably this way even today in 2022. You just had to have the Jordan zone to be in. That was the acceptable, that was a cool crowd. If you had a pair of mics on whenever they came out every 2 or 3 months or however long it was, you were in the in crowd in school. He sent the message to get material things at all costs. That's what this did. This, through the Jordans, it sent a message to a lot of urban communities to get material things at all costs. Shoes, clothes, and jewelry, which really have no true value to it in the long run. It's not like it's property. If you want to have true wealth comes through property, owning the land. He who owns the land wins the war. Remember that. He who owns the land is who will eventually win the war. So this materialism through shoes and clothes and jewelry, we have this really bad in the black community. We think that a person wearing a designer outfit and a chain is a symbol of wealth. I'm here to tell you, brother, as an OG, that is not a symbol of wealth. An outfit and a gold chain and a pair of gym shoes is laughable to people who really have wealth. No offense. You want to have wealth? That comes through property, real estate, being involved in stocks and bonds, you know, whatever it may be, the trade industry, all types of various ways of accumulating resources. But we have been taught to pursue gaining materials at all costs. Shoes, clothes, and jewelry. So much so that people were at one point in Chicago, I'm from Chicago, you had kids who were losing their lives being shot down in cold blood over a pair of sneakers. That was happening in Chicago in the late 90s. Can you imagine that? Losing your life over a pair of tennis shoes. Look at the mind control that we are under. See, many of us are under this satanic mind control and we don't even get it. You're under mind control. If you will go out there and buy $200-$300 pair of gym shoes, $500 to $1,000 on clothes, and you don't own a home, that's mind control, brother. We have been deceived. And this programming comes through the intelligent agencies, okay? Through movies, through music, through entertainment, through all of these apps on your phone, you are being programmed to think this way. Think about this. Think about the movies you're watching, the music you listen to, the apps you have on your phone, which is now the media for today, to be honest. You're being programmed to do what is adverse to yourself. And that's so sad to see. And so that helps me to now transition to the next part of this talk, and that is the rise of Babylon within this culture. Modern day Babylon through sorcery and witchcraft. You see, ancient Babylon was located in what is now modern day Iraq. Babylon got access to God's people because of their disobedience. Let me say it again. Babylon got access to the people of God because of Israel's, the Hebrews' disobedience. This is recorded in the Word of God. If you want to do your own research, I won't read it for you. I want you to study yourself too. I want you to work. The purpose of these talks is to give you some information, to give you something to think about, but to dive deeper for yourself, okay? So we look at Jeremiah 21, 4 through 10. You will see that Babylon got access to God's people because of disobedience. Babylon is a symbol of God's enemies and his people, right? So is Egypt and Sodom for that matter. And that can be found in the New Testament in Revelation chapter 17, verse 3 through verse 6. So in the Old Testament, God's judgment for Israel's unfaithfulness to the Most High God. And in the New Testament, persecuted believers who are faithful. So in the New Testament, you see Babylon as a picture of believers who are being persecuted for being faithful. And in the Old Testament, it was a symbol of God's punishment against Israel's unfaithfulness. See, think about the divination and witchcraft that was practiced in Babylon. I want to talk about this for a minute and then give some very real practical applications for today in our modern world. So you think about divination or witchcraft, which was very popular in the ancient Babylonian Empire. You had priestly wizards who would perform divination, and many of the kings of that day consulted this class of soothsayers. And guys, this is unfortunately what has happened to a lot of our pastors and rappers. As opposed to being pastors and prophets, which is what a true rapper can be, by the way. A rapper really is a prophet, and they have a very powerful position. If you are a rapper and people are following you by the thousands, you are a prophet, whether you realize it or not. Okay? And just because you're a prophet doesn't mean you're a good prophet. You can be a good prophet or a false prophet. Okay? And then you have pastors. And so what is happening in this rise of this Babylonian culture that we live in, a lot of our voices, black men, our pastors and our rappers have become basically warlocks and soothsayers. And it's really sad, bro. I don't say that like I'm proud to say that. That hurts me as a fellow black man. That are the people, the men who are trusted to talk to us, in many cases are not right. And this is why so many of us are sick mentally. That bothers me, black man. We're constantly being taught foolishness and lies. And this comes both from our rappers as well as our pastors. And that's not to say that every pastor is bad and every rapper is bad. There are some good pastors, there are some good rappers. It go both ways. But in many cases, our pastors and prophets have become nothing more than warlocks and soothsayers. And I'm getting goosebumps even saying it, man, because this is real to me, man. This bothers me. Because there's power in words. There's supposed to be power behind a pastor. There's supposed to be power behind a rapper, a prophet, a poet who's given inspiration and guidance for life. And so even in ancient Babylon, the priestly wizards performed divination, and many of the kings of that day consulted the class of soothsayers. Poems in Babylon. There are poems from ancient Babylon that reveal they had a belief in vampires. And in other words, in one of their quotes it says, there are demons full of violence, ceaselessly devouring blood. Woo! I get chills even saying this. This is in the poets of Babylon. It says that they are demons full of violence, ceaselessly devouring blood. Purification by water was a part of Babylonian magic as well. Think about the movie Purple Rain and Prince when he talked about purifying yourself in the lake in the movie. I forget the name of the lake right now. I can't call it right now as I talk about this. But you guys who have seen Purple Rain from the 80s, you know what I'm talking about. When Prince talks about having his girlfriend purified in that water, right? That was referring to the ancient black magic in the Babylonian Empire. So they had a belief system in very specific demons. They had a belief system in very specific demons that they believed lurked in deserts, lurked in graveyards, and in the seas. Have you guys heard my teachings on the marine demons? Okay. This stuff all goes hand in hand, guys. And you think about the ghettos across this country: Chicago, New York City, LA, New Orleans, some other city right now, Detroit, and so many others, probably about 4 or 5 cities I can't call right now. You probably call them for me in the comment section. These cities that are by large bodies of water that are being controlled by marine demons. And these demons operate through sorcery, murder, greed, violence, and corruption. Let me say that again. These demons operate. Think about this. Sorcery. Let's talk about it. What's sorcery? Drugs. Crack cocaine. Come on now. All them pills y'all popping. You know, I'm rolling off a flat. You know how they know this in the rap songs? You know, I'm leaning like a kickstand. Leaning. You know what I mean? I'm lit. Leaning. Got the pills. Popping those perks. You know what I'm saying? What Dirk saying in that song? I had me a pill, drink me a gallon of water, and stuff hurt my stomach. You hear me? That sorcery spirit is strong in our communities. All of them talking about getting high. Leaning, popping pills, smoking weed all the time, drinking all the time. And then once you graduate from past all that, now crack cocaine, out here just high as a kite. That sorcery spirit is devouring our people. Because through that sorcery is mind control, spells, death and murder and destruction, greed, violence, corruption. It messes us up. You got us out here, man, I'm gonna be honest, just toe up. You hear me? Toe up. So you think about divination, the act of divining or foretelling a future event, right? Acts 16, verse 16, I'm going to read this verse. This is in an NIV translation. Once when we were going to the place of prayer, we were met by a female slave who had a spirit by which she predicted the future. She earned a great deal of money for her owners by fortune telling. So in the Old Testament, this was referred to, of course, as witchcraft. And even in the New Testament, it is essentially Satan's counterfeit for the Spirit of God. Witchcraft, divination, foretelling, all of that stuff is a counterfeit, or Satan's counterfeit, demon's counterfeit, to the true guidance and help of the Spirit of God. So different forms of this can come through astrology, necromancers, sorcerers, witches. We see this in Daniel 5 and verse 7. The king summoned the enchanters, astrologers, and diviners. That's Daniel chapter 5 and verse 7. Necromancer, according to Deuteronomy 18 verse 11, or cast spells, or who is a medium or spiritist, or one who consults the dead. That stuff's happening. You got a lot of these rappers, boy, talking to the dead. Come on now, but they talking to you. They're necromancers. They are practicing witchcraft. There is a lot of witchcraft in the music industry, guys. I want you to understand that. While you're turning up and bobbing your head and dancing and whatnot to the music, there's a lot of spells being cast, brother. You need to understand that. There is spell casting. There is necromancers consulting the dead. All type of weird stuff. Sorcerers, those who practice magic arts, according to Revelation 21 and verse 8. And then you have witches that are mentioned in Exodus 22 and verse 8. And so I want to give you this solid teaching. I have so much more I can say, and I feel like I can go so much more deeper into this, but this is enough for this video. This can be revisited and talked about with deeper and more layers. But this is about a good solid 25, 30-minute talk, I believe it is, to give you some perspective on two things: the raceless black man, as well as the modern day Babylon through sorcery and witchcraft. This is your brother Iron and Soul. Thanks for listening to this talk. God bless. Peace.